was always numbers, analytical, data-driven. I was always that way inclined. When you rise the ranks, your network and your circle also has to rise, or you're naturally going to be dragged down, and that happened for me very quickly. I was at that firm for 3.5 years, essentially give me the base level knowledge of how to break down a business, get them in the right vehicle for tax efficiency, understand all the intricacies of how to save someone tax, how to make someone more efficient for VAT or bigger payback at the end of the year. Like, all them intricacies I started to learn and always ask questions, be inquisitive. I was pretty lonely because I didn't really have anyone apart from me, laptop, working very, very long hours. Always had my partner there. Friendship circle went from big, always going out, always quite close, doing events together, to pretty much 1 or 2. The first 12 months, I grew it to just over 100k turnover, just me.
No employees, no nothing like that. Your own clients. You're the only accountant in that firm making 100k.
Yeah, that was first 12 months.
Josh, thank you very much for coming on the CEOCAST.
Pleasure.
Appreciate you coming here, and I think you're the first accountant to come on the podcast as well. So this is going to be proper interesting. Young accountant, 24 years old, built your own empire, built your own business. So I think this is a really, really incredible story to get into. So to introduce us to the audience, who are you?
So I started in finance accountancy from pretty early age, you could say, 16. So I was always numbers, analytical, data-driven. I was always that way inclined. Like some people, English, some people are numbers. I was always numbers.
Is this in school times as well?
Always,
okay.
Always. So like top of the class in maths. Like that was always my. But you know, when things just come easy to people, that was what came easy to me. So that led to picking career path. That was accountancy. Started local firm, rose the ranks there to senior level pretty quickly. I was going from brew boy, doing the filing, to dealing with the largest contracts, doing the networking, bringing in new clients quite quickly. Went to a city firm from there because I hit the ceiling. Went to the city firm, ended up doing audits, accounts for 20 million all the way up to 120, 150, 200 million, dealing with directors, CTOs, CMOs, COOs, and I was babyface. I mean, I looked young at that point in time. So had to very quickly adapt to like corporate and how these big firms work. I quite quickly adapted, first in, last out, that sort of mindset. Decided I was going to set up on my own, which I did. Built a firm pretty quickly. We're at 19 staff now. In the UK, we deal with e-com brands, directors, companies all the way up to 60, 70 mil turnover. And I'm essentially trying to make my mark on the world in finance and making it accessible to entrepreneurs.
I think you have been making your mark, man, especially with your meteoric rise on social media. I mean, this is where I came across you, and you look like a young guy who knows exactly what he's talking about when it comes to finance. I've been receiving tips from your social media thinking, right, I didn't know that. Or, you know, just thinking of ways I can reduce tax bills or something like that. So when I saw your content, I was like, right, I've got to get you on the podcast. And you pretty much just like highlighted your whole story there, but we're going to have to break it down bit by bit. So if we had to go back to school, now obviously anyone being good at maths and numbers, I was an A-star student when it came to GCSE maths. Don't ask about anything going forward from there because it all went downhill. But it never came in my head that I want to be an accountant. Was it in your head that you want to be one, or what was it for you?
You know what, it wasn't. And it was as simple as, so Grandad, I will get into this story later, but Grandad was like an inspiring figure in my life. He was really successful himself, did well, and he was always driving down from an early age what I wanted to do. And because I was always numbers driven, analytical, that way inclined, it was as simple as, right, with that skill set, what are the career choices? And then it was like literally a Google search, looking at what the career choices are with that skill set. And then it was looking at, right, what's the highest paid career? And that was accountancy and finance. So that was as simple as the decision behind it.
So was it something, can you remember, was there a memory of you and your granddad sitting down at a laptop and thinking about the career choices you could have gone down?
Yeah, it was literally sitting at a dinner table, going, right, here's your skill set, Josh. Here's the options. What's the highest paid? This is what I go for. And I believe that whatever path I'd have gone down, I'd have been in a similar situation because it's drive, it's not the actual topic that you're trying to achieve. But yeah, it was as simple as that.
And can you remember what year that was? Was that GCSEs or sixth form college times?
That'll have been just before GCSEs, so 2015.
Okay, that's early then.
Yeah.
That's early, okay.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting because not a lot of people know, especially in school, what they want to do when they grow up. It's only when it comes to, applying for universities and colleges what they actually want to do. They start have to think about their life choices. But the fact that you pretty much knew in year 9, which is just for GCSEs, of what you want to do in your career path, I think that kind of shows testament to where you are right now, because you've always planned your life, I suppose, that far in advance and been prepared for it.
Yeah.
What sort of other preparation did you need to get on this journey? Aside from, the grades and knowing where you want to go.
I actually got my first job in accountancy before I'd done my GCSEs. So it was actually before. It wasn't like post doing GCSEs and then these were the results and this is what I was going to go into. I'd made sure I'd put the groundwork in. But admittedly, I was pushed by Grandad to make sure that I was on the right path and I knew what I wanted to do. Because even though I feel like the starting flames of that sort of drive and high ambitious mindset was there, it didn't sort of really sprout and grow legs until I got further down in my career. But I'd say preparation of getting into accountancy and finance was just understanding what it was, what the end result is that you're trying to actually achieve for business owners. And that, for me, that customer service, helping people battle finances, helping people save, helping people grow businesses, that for me was just the sparking light.
Yeah, I suppose when it comes down to you, you've properly got to know your customer, know your client for you to actually save them on their taxes and deal with their accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And that's where most accountants go wrong. They just know how to sit on a calculator, do the numbers, press submit, and then they're on to the next, like a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
Come around once a year. They don't speak to you apart from that.
But I'm assuming not all strategies work for the same clients, right?
Completely bespoke. Completely bespoke. Every business model, every director, everyone's also got something they want to achieve differently out of the business. So you've essentially got to understand what that person wants, what they're trying to achieve, reverse engineer from there, and then you can start to map out what's right for that individual.
Yeah. Okay, so going into it now, after you left school, where did you go from there?
So left school, got results, had, I believe, about 4 weeks off, like not much, went straight into it after that. Started at a local firm in Ashton-under-Lyne, which is just outside of Greater Manchester. Started there, usual stuff, brew boy, apprentice, doing studies alongside that. Quickly started to rise the ranks, be someone that was like a high achiever. It was only a small practice, but I always had drive and I always wanted to do more, be more, achieve more. Quickly started to gain expertise in tax. Originally it was smaller businesses, so like builders, plumbers, really basic stuff. And then I started to rise the rank on businesses that were closer to multi-6 and 7 figure.
Within the same firm?
Within the same firm, yeah.
Yeah.
I was at that firm for, say, around 3.5 years.
Okay.
And that essentially gave me the building blocks and that base level knowledge of how to break down a business, get them in the right vehicle for tax efficiency, understand all the intricacies of how to save someone tax, how to make someone more efficient for VAT, or how to make sure that if they was getting a company vehicle, it could be offset and wrote against the taxes, and then they've got a bigger pay back at the end of the year. Like all them intricacies I started to learn and always ask questions, be inquisitive. And essentially at that point in time, I got to the position where I was doing a lot of the networking, a lot of the initial client meetings, bringing in quite a lot of business for the firm. And then I decided that I'd hit a ceiling and I went to a city firm then. So direct in Manchester.
So I'm assuming you had left school at 16 or joined this firm around 16, 17?
16 I joined.
Stayed there until you were about 20?
Yes.
And from my understanding from that right there, so as you're climbing the ranks, that's when you're experiencing dealing with different businesses on, higher revenues or something like that.
Yeah.
And then went to the city firm.
Correct.
What would you say is the big difference between a city firm and the more local firm? So when you went to the city firm, did it feel like almost like you've had to restart, or what was it like for you? Because it could be a lot more pressure.
Yeah, massively different, because the type of clientele you're dealing with, they go from like local plumber, local businesses in the surrounding area to businesses that are all across the country, and these guys can be doing 50, 100, 60, 70, 80 mil, like whatever their numbers may be. So huge difference really was the clientele, the way of operating, the pressure of that environment. Like it completely changed, definitely.
And you have to learn on the job then, basically.
Of course you do. Yeah, you learn again.
What sort of things did you learn in the first year of being at Citibank, or not Citibank, sorry, a city accounting firm?
That everything I was doing at the smaller firm, same principles, just turn that dial up 100 times, because if we're now inputting a change in someone's businesses which is going to save tax, and at the local firm they were doing 100k, the potential to save £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 is there. But if we're now doing it on a company that's turning over 100 million, that same change has a much bigger lever in terms of how much we can actually save that business. So all of a sudden the stakes are dialed up straight away. You can't make mistakes anymore, because if you make a mistake on someone doing 100 mil and that's potentially a 6-figure contract for the firm you're working with, and that's you that's done it and it originated from your mistake, game over.
Yeah, no, we're definitely going to do another podcast after this one, just purely speaking about tax, how people can actually save money by lowering their tax bills.
Yeah.
This one being about you, and I think once again it's an inspiring story. So now that you've reached at this Citibank, did you climb up the ladders there as well?
Yeah, so started I was pretty much at senior level already, like semi-senior I suppose they'd call it. Originally was doing like smaller accounts, so I'd start at seven-figure companies, maybe doing $1 million turnover. Pretty quickly I was doing audits for companies that were doing 100 million plus, and I was essentially managing apprentices and finding my footsteps in a bigger firm and trying to make sure that I do rise the ranks. I was always someone that wanted to be there first, leave last, make an impression. I would always walk into she was called Sue, I'd walk into the boss's office and try and give some form of idea or try and just go above and beyond. I feel like whatever you're doing, whether you're in construction, accounts, finances, YouTube, you've got to go above and beyond or you don't progress. And that was always instilled in me from young.
So you had joined this firm, right? And climbing the ladder quite quickly. How old were your colleagues?
Old.
Yeah, because I want to know if you think they thought anything of you, being this young guy, energetic, buzzing, wants to climb the ranks, getting to climb the ranks, maybe even, I wouldn't say maybe going higher positions than them, but I mean, you're doing very well for yourself. Was there any sort of thing you had to experience in the office from your colleagues, especially ones that are older than you, pretty much kick their ego down?
This episode is sponsored by Fireaway Pizza, the fastest growing pizza company in the UK. With over 100 locations, you definitely have a store near you. The founder of Fireaway was on the show not too long ago, and you can get a slice of the action by using the discount code CEOCAST at fireaway.co.uk. Once again, use the discount code CEOCAST at fireaway.co.uk.
Well, they're all comfortable because they're all 9 to 5. So they're used to turning up at 9, leaving at 5, and that's what they do. Anything above that, they don't really like. Like, we even had a policy in the office that you couldn't be there on your own for health and safety. And I was always trying to be there on my own because I was always trying to be there first and I was trying to be there last. So I'd actually get told very frequently, you need to come in later or you need to leave earlier. And that's like, for an organisation to be doing that to employees that are trying to be ambitious, high achieving and rise the ranks, to tell them you need to work less or to tell them you need to do less. It's trying to get them to adapt and fit into that 9 to 5 lifestyle, which most corporate firms, that's instilled throughout the whole organisation. So when I come in, I'm fast paced, I'm ambitious and I want to do more.
You're on it.
It's a bit of a splash. And not everyone likes that.
What was your upbringing like?
Upbringing was relatively good. Like, I didn't have a bad upbringing at all. Mum, dad, loving, split up quite early. So I had 2 different households, moved around quite a lot. Probably been in 15, 16 different houses in my life. So a lot of change, a lot of movement, which I feel like...
Who was you primarily with?
Mum until 16, then dad.
Okay.
So I'd say moving around a lot, you've got to adapt. You've got to be used to new locations, new friends, etc. You've got to adapt. I mean, I didn't move cross country, but 30-40 minute drive when you don't really drive and you're a younger individual, it changes things for you. So good upbringing, to be honest, no complaints there. I had a loving, caring family and they'd push me and support me in whatever I do.
What I'm interested in is, as you just said there, different friendship groups all the time. Now, as you're growing up in this day and age, how are you finding making friends in your friendship circles? Because if you, growing up, hadn't had one set of friendship circle throughout the whole time, what's it like for you now? Because I can imagine that could almost make you like an introvert. Was it like that for you? I'd
say I'm naturally introverted for sure. I think at that point in life, I was still, I was high achieving in work, but I was still also happy to go out and have a drink at the weekend and party. So I think it made it a little bit easy to still be in groups where they may not be as ambitious as I was, but I sort of had two lives. It was like corporate life day to day, and then I'd go home at the weekend, and then I might go to the gym and might go out on the weekend and hit the pubs, and that sort of stuff I was still doing at that age. Whereas I could be fast forward to now, and I'm sure it's the same with yourself. Like, who you surround yourself with when you're at a higher level is a completely different to who you surround yourself with when you're out partying and drinking.
Yeah.
So like, I know Stephen Bartlett talks about it, social shedding. Like when you rise the ranks, your network and your circle also has to rise, or you're naturally going to be dragged down. And that happened for me very quickly.
Can you tell me about a time that happened then?
Yeah, so I remember, like, I pretty much stopped drinking completely. I'd say, I don't know what age, but I stopped drinking completely, and I just wanted to focus all in on business. Like, that's all I was interested in. And I would go out at the weekend, and even if I would have tried to go for food with friends, straight away it would be, them trying to push having a drink on you, or, oh, you're too posh for us now, or you just care about work, or you're not as fun anymore. It's just them little comments, they start to, over time, stack up, and then you start to realise that you're in the wrong group.
Especially if they're repeated comments as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you start to then get uncomfortable, and you feel like you've almost got to go out and act differently to how you actually act day to day to fit in that group. And I'm a big believer that people are quite often anxious in certain situations because it's not a situation they should be in. So let's say I'm going out with a group of 10 friends and they're all drinking, partying on the weekends. I'm probably going to be very quiet in that scenario. I'm probably going to be a little bit anxious and not want to be there. Whereas if you put me with 10 people who are all business focused, entrepreneurial, and they like having them conversations, I'll be a social butterfly and I'll speak for as long as you want. So same scenario, just different people.
Those are your rooms now. Yeah,
completely different characteristics from myself. So that happened quite quickly, and it just meant finding people that were on a similar path than me. And then you can also push, motivate each other, and that's how you rise the ranks together.
What point did you say that happened? When you just started your business?
Just started my business, yeah.
Okay.
I'd say for a time, to be honest, I was pretty lonely because I didn't really have anyone apart from maybe some clients, but there's a barrier. You can't have the same relationship if it's a paying customer. So there was a time really when it was just me, laptop, working very, very long hours. Always had my partner there, so she was a rock. But like friendship circle went from big, 30, 40, 50, always going out, always quite close, doing events together, to pretty much one or two that I'd stay sort of friends with, that I'd go train with maybe. Like very quickly that happened.
I suppose that happens when as you're starting your business, especially when all your time and energy is going into focusing on making this business worth something, right? Because you would have had to leave your job. You can't, so this is interesting because this is actually maybe a good point to speak on, because in a usual case, what we hear all the time is build your business as you're working at your job. Now I'm assuming because of the nature of the business, you can't do that. You can't build your business an accounting firm whilst working at another accounting firm.
Yeah.
So you had one or the other, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
So what was that coming to the whole starting your business decision? What was that like for you? Because it's not like anyone else where they can just build it on the side to a point where now that revenue is more than your income. For you, it's just straight switch.
Yeah, so I actually had a little bit of a lucky break. However, that lucky break turned into something that affected me pretty massively, which I'll get into. So essentially, I was working at the firm I mentioned in Manchester. I'd done a couple of like family tax returns and stuff on the side, but anything more than that, and it's conflict of interest and your breaching clause in your contract. So I couldn't start the business.
Because they're not clients for the firm.
Correct. So essentially, one of like a family friend who I'd do a tax return for on the side, they had a big entertainment agency that they worked for, and they were looking for a finance director. They had quite like an old boy finance director in there, and they was looking for someone modern because they was retiring. So I was like, okay, I'm still going to be able to do my stuff alongside because it's no longer conflict of interest, but I can still have an income to support myself. So I ended up going for that role and ended up working as like an FD for a company with the premise of I would build my business alongside. Conversations went further with the director of that business, and because he had such scope in the industry he was in, he dealt with celebrities, big production companies, freelancers, musicians. The plan was I would start my business, he would get an equity share, which ended up being 50%, and I would get access to his network, essentially. And my business would start, rather than ground up,
already up there.
It was already up there. So I was like, okay, so I'm getting a similar income to what I was already getting, and I can have the potential, providing I put the work in, to have an accountancy firm that straight away is doing 100k revenue.
Yeah.
And then it's just going to grow up and up and up. And the compounding effect of already having that start and already having that validation of working with celebrities going to be huge.
Yeah. So these are promises that the director of that business had made to say, look, 50% of your business, I'll take it, and this is what I'll provide for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually ended up, because he was local, I actually ended up working in their office as well. So I had a back office and then essentially this access to this network where I could reach out to and try and get clientele in. So that was the intention. And I built a very good relationship with them initially. And even now, there's no bad words to say about them. However, the network and the access to clientele didn't really go how it was intended to. Yeah. So, I had some contacts, I got a couple of clients here and there, but I essentially grew the business just through me thinking of ways to market myself, even like leaflets, posting leaflets in people's doors, business cards, going into businesses, introducing myself. I'm this person, I'm doing X, can I help you with accountancy? So the first 12 months, I grew it to, it was just over 100k turnover. The first 12 months, that was just me. I was in their back office, probably about 70k of that was profit, some expenses, etc. But all of that was from me. Like, it weren't really from the network.
No employees, no nothing like that. Your own clients. You're the only accounting in that firm making 100k.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that was first 12 months. And then at that point, I naturally started to get itchy feet because I could see that the business had legs, and providing that I can start building a team now, expand my horizons a little bit, go on social media, start to gain more exposure in certain networks. I could see all the stars aligning, but I was like, okay, this guy's got 50% of my business. So what benefits am I getting? And when I broke down them benefits, they weren't really there. It was more of a weight on my shoulder and chain. So I had to try and relinquish that as quickly as possible. So I raised conversations. They didn't go too well. They weren't too happy that the business had started growing, and now all of a sudden I wanted to get back equity.
Yep.
But my argument was, I'm building the business, I'm putting the groundwork in, you guys are already doing really well. Let me fly the nest, sort of thing.
So just to understand it, the only really value they were bringing is the network, shall I say. Other than that, throughout this whole time, your first 12 months of doing this business and building up to 100k, they didn't do much. As in, they didn't have a specific role other than that.
No direct role in the business. The MD of the company gave me some mentorship, gave me some good pointers, helped me. I had a good relationship with him, like I said. But in terms of actual business operations, it's just me.
Yeah.
I had office space, so me having office space looked good to clients. So there was benefits, but 50%.
That's true. In fact, because that first 12 months making 100k, that's only, you said 70% was your profit, so let's just say 70k. The only thing that's yours really is 35.
Exactly.
The other thing's gone straight to him.
Yeah.
Which is insane. One second, let me put my phone on Do Not Disturb. That's Manchester calling, falling off. Sorry about that.
It's okay. And it's also the enterprise value of the business that I'm building. Like, that's future value that also wasn't mine. And then it's also anything coming up in terms of growth. Again, 50% is not mine. So I almost felt like I had all this opportunity. My skill set, knowledge was like compounding like crazy. But I didn't want to sprint as fast as I could because someone had 50% of it.
Can you go into the conversations you had with them? If I had to ask you to recall and repaint us that picture of you going into the meeting room and saying, look, John, as an example for his name, I want to chat to you about this business. What was it like? And what did you say to him?
So I essentially said that, listen, business is growing quickly. I'm putting all the groundwork in. This is where I see it going. I want to buy back equity at certain points in time. So I didn't go in there and say, right, I want 50% back. Thanks for your help, but I'm off. I went in there the right way, probably too generously, in all honesty. I went in there essentially saying, right, I want to hit these targets. When I hit these targets, I'm going to get X equity back. And I essentially did like a stepping stone to get me back up to 100%, where he'd still do well out of it. He'd still get payouts, share of profits, because at the end of the day, I'd agreed to that. And it wouldn't be morally right of me to just go, now I'm doing well, see you later. Even though what was originally promised didn't happen. But at the same time, I didn't just want to go in there and say, see you later. That's not how I operate. But essentially, I had to have numerous conversations that each time just went worse and worse. Tensions dialed up and up and up. One of the comments he made at one point were, well, if you want to buy it back, you have to give me $500,000. Bearing in mind it was doing 100k at this time, 70k profit.
So where's you got 100?
So it's like, where am I going to get £500,000 from? Well, borrow it from the banks. Just unreasonable. This guy's a wealthy guy as well. So it was quite unreasonable, in all honesty.
At each time where you had the conversation with him, did it deteriorate your relationship with him or friendship with him even more?
Yeah. I saw a different side as soon as that conversation happened. Like, we was actually quite close. Even like outside of working hours, we'd go for coffees. I'd been to his house. But as soon as that conversation happened, very different side.
The very first one, or as it got more into
the first conversation, it changed quite quickly. And that was a good lesson for me. One that I hold closely even now, that as soon as business, money, personal interests are changed or poked, relationships change quickly.
100%. People can change. People could change it. But I suppose the benefit is you learned that early on as well. Yeah, fair enough. I had a question off the back of that. So what was your tipping point to say, right, enough's enough, and how do you actually get your equity back?
So there was a couple of options at that point. It was either, right, I go and set up a completely new business and start from scratch. But because of the contracts and agreements that we had, I couldn't take the clients, or I'd be pursued by legal case, essentially. So option one was set up again, start from scratch, which when I'd built a good plan in place, I didn't want to do. Option two was take my chances and probably have a legal battle, knowing that they're very well capitalised and I'm not so much because I'm starting out a business. Or option three was to try and settle, essentially. And after, I want to say, months of back and forth and deliberation and thinking about things and weighing up pros, cons, I ended up deciding to settle. So essentially, this is what I offer. I want to buy back all equity, set up on my own, and have no ties. So
throughout this whole time and all these months, you're still working in his office. Which is crazy. There must have been a point where you just didn't want to go to that building anymore. So how did you actually even survive running your business in the first place? Dealing with that mentally, that could burden you massively.
It was hard because at that point in time, the business had grown locally. So I was doing a lot of in-person meetings. So I didn't have the luxury of just saying, right, well, I'll go and work from home now. Because all clientele were local to the area that the office was in, and he was actively coming in to the office quite regularly. So I didn't have the luxury of just going, right, let's just park everything. I'll stop the business, deal with this, and then I'll carry on. Because these guys have VAT return deadlines, accounts deadlines, they need tax planning, they need advice, they need meetings. So I couldn't put the brakes on to deal with this situation. So I had to continue with the business, continue dealing with leads that I was getting in, continue my growth plans while trying to essentially deal with this situation. And at the same time, we was buying a property, me and my partner. So there was the stress of that as well. So there was a lot going on, and I essentially just had to dig deep. That was my only option, just dig deep, juggle every plate. Some days I was very stressed. My partner had to console me and, give me words of wisdom. But it was tough.
As they do.
Yeah, as they do.
How was, obviously, everyone's partner is their rock and their gem and they want to come home to their partner in peace. But I do want to get into this as well. Your partner being around, in them times where you're dealing with all this stress, work, moving, this battle that you're facing with the guy who owns 50%, how does your partner comfort you?
Just being there, in all honesty. That's the main thing. I was working long hours, like I mean long hours. You know, I'd drive to the office at 5 a.m. I'd get home at 10, 11 p.m. at night quite often, and this was weeks on the bounce. So not much time together. Weekends were no different. So there was very little time between us, and honestly, just being able to come home to someone that had my best interest at heart, and just spend even that hour some nights was just, you know, what got me through it essentially. Yeah.
So going to this point now, you finally got your business back. You've got 100% ownership.
Yeah.
First things first, I'm assuming you moved straight out of their office.
Mm-hmm.
You got your own place or?
Yeah.
Okay, got your own place, set all that up. And now you're leveraging social media. Is that when you started to use social media properly?
Just before this situation, I'd started to post inconsistently, but nothing like I do now.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. So what was your whole strategy? Now that you got 100% ownership, I want to know, was it almost like a different business to you? Or what was it like?
So when I got 100% ownership, I had to settle and essentially pay out quite a lot of money. It was like a 6-figure sum it ended up being. So at that age, that money was hard to find. So especially when buying a house, the pot was dry and some. You know, I had to be resourceful. Let's just say that. I had to be very resourceful.
Question, did you still manage to buy the house?
Yes.
Okay.
We actually, by complete chance, completed on the buyout and the house on the same day.
Okay, damn.
So
there's a lot of money going out one day.
That's still to this day the most money I've ever spent in one day.
I can imagine.
Yeah, stressful.
Yeah. And then from there?
So from there, essentially, new office block, back was against the wall because I'd just spent more money than I could even comprehend. Never mind, like, I could have never imagined me being in that situation, from earning a standard wage in city centre to doing quite well for myself, you know, 6-7 grand a month take home quite easily. Then all of a sudden, pot's dry, back against the wall, paying back family members for the money that I had to scrape together. Tough situation to be in, as well as having rent to take on for a new office block, gas, electricity, etc.
Life's almost flips upside down in a
Quickly.
way. You know, going from climbing up the ranks, going to the city firm, started your own business, overnight, just coming back down.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Once again, a mental toll that must have had on you at the same time.
Massive.
But then how did you get through that time then?
I got through that time by just remembering why the business had grown, and that's because I had a skill set which was to really understand business owners, what they're trying to achieve, reverse engineer that, and help them make money, save money, and try and battle the challenges of finances, business. I just had a natural skill to be able to do that. I've been doing it in the local firm, Manchester office, and then I've been doing it for myself as like a solopreneur. So I knew I had that skill set, and I knew the potential, and now I had the biggest, like they say, tiger behind your back. I'd offset all of this money to get the business back. I'm not just now gonna
stop.
Yeah. Like I had to sprint faster than ever.
Literally full stead ahead.
Yeah, sprint faster than ever. And this wasn't, like, people, it's a bit of a misconception, like this wasn't a decade ago. Like, I haven't been in this game.
I know, you're only 24, which is crazy.
You know, like, this actually wasn't a great deal of time ago. So
how long are we talking now?
2 to 3 years.
Okay, so just after COVID?
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting as well, because even combined with COVID, no one really knows where the market's going. No one really knows where the economy or world's going.
Yeah.
So all of this on your plate is crazy, insane.
A lot.
There was one point you mentioned to me in your story, right, that really, you know, threw a spanner in the works, but also motivated you on a different level to keep cracking on with your business. Now, would you be able to explain that for us?
Which point was that? Sorry.
You was talking about your granddad passing.
Yes. Yeah. So granddad was entrepreneurial himself. He didn't actually have his own business, but he was MD of a company that's well over 1,000 staff now.
Okay.
Huge company.
In Manchester?
Cheadle.
Where's that?
Cheadle, just outside of Manchester.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah. Did very well for himself, rose the ranks massively. They were a commercial printing company. So COVID, for example, all the leaflets that you got through your post, they'd have printed every single one.
Yeah.
B&Q, Boots, all the big companies.
Everything.
They do all the print. Huge company. And they offshoot into loads of different categories as well, digital marketing. They did a lot. He essentially took that business by the horns with the founder and drove it to 1,000+ staff in quite a short period of time. Did very well for himself. So he was always pushing me to want more, do more, achieve more. What's your 5-year plan, Josh? What's your 10-year plan?
I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, he sat down with you when you were in year 9 just before your GCSEs to figure out where your life's going to go.
Yeah, of course.
So shout out to him.
Of course. And just to like timestamp this at the point in my sort of journey, so to speak, where I'm saying that he was 5-year plan, 10-year plan, this was just as I was starting out in accountancy. Fast forward 3-4 years, I was at the Manchester City office. My granddad was still pushing me. What are you doing next? When are you going to start on your own? And then he got ill very quickly. So he got a brain tumour. And from completely healthy to no longer with us in 18 months' time. And that was tough. Like, my granddad had always been that person that I spoke to about business, career, and because my family, apart from that, not entrepreneurial, like no big careers, no corporate jobs. So my granddad was that person. And at that point in time, I feel like I hadn't really applied myself as much as I could have done. Even though I was doing well, I hadn't really applied myself like he knew I had potential to.
What year did he pass?
He passed just over 3 years ago now.
Okay, so this is before you started your business?
Yeah.
So this is the reason why you wanted to take that leap of faith and do it?
That gave me a massive push.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. There's been so many times in my life as well, personally, you know, where things have happened, or not even necessarily people passing, but I mean, where I feel like I've not living up to people's expectations. For example, my dad or you know, his dad, uncles, aunties, whatever the case may be, you're not living up to what people think highly of you. And it just pushes you to make sure, you know, you want to really achieve what they're expecting and beyond.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's different level of motivation from there, man. And
he just put so much time into me, like going back even further, like I was round there's 1, 2, 3, 4 times a week. Like, it was a lot in my childhood. I spent a lot of time there. And even as simple as like before we'd have dinner at night, I would do 15 questions, which was like 78 times 42 divided by 7 times this as a percentage of this. Like, he would make me do these equations before we had food.
Yeah.
Like, he was constantly driving me to just be better. Like, this is the person you're going to be. We've achieved this nice house, these holidays. He's had a holiday home. If you want the same, this is what you've got to do. And I feel like it was almost a bit like, yeah, I'll do it at some point. Yeah, like, I'm going to do it. Leave me alone a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas then when he got ill, and I'd started to step into that mindset, then it was like, right, okay, potential's there. He always saw it. I now see it. Let's sprint.
Your granddad, is he your mum's or your dad's dad?
Dad's dad.
Okay, so what does your dad do for a living? Because if your granddad's like that, and, you know, he's got this entrepreneurial spirit to him, my thought process would be that it would pass down to your dad as well.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah.
So my dad actually worked in the same company as my granddad.
Okay.
But as a commercial printer. So actually on the printing floor.
Yeah.
My dad has just never had that entrepreneurial spark. He's always been happy just turning up, doing the work, looking after his family. It sort of skipped a generation a little bit. Like, love my dad to bits. He just never had that spark of like entrepreneurship.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You know, it's
not anything wrong with it at all.
The family, being comfortable with it. You know, then it's all right. Yeah. I want to go back to some point in the podcast where you mentioned that, you know, your purpose for accounting is to understand what business owners are really trying to achieve and reverse engineering that. Now, me asking you, sitting here right now as a business owner who speaks to many business owners, what is it that business owners are trying to achieve?
Different, massively different, but quite a lot of the time they don't know is the honest answer, and they need to sit down with someone who understands how to break down what they think they want and turn it into what they actually want, and then reverse engineer it into, right, what are the actionable steps and what business vehicle do you need, what setup do you need. Like, it's hard for people to sometimes comprehend. Like, if you ask anyone what the goals or visions are, most of the time they'll mumble a little bit. well, I just want a big business and I want to make a lot of money. You don't really know. So what we try and do is we try and pinpoint what that individual's looking for, whether it's time freedom, location freedom, they want to look after family, there might be a driver to pay off the mum's mortgage, move the mum out of an area that's poverty, like whatever that may be, try and find them root causes of motivation and then go, right, well, what are the financial revenue or profits that are needed in order to make that come to fruition. And then we break it down even further. We'll look at the business model. If it's a product-based business, how many products do you need to sell, at what margin, what would the team structure need to be to achieve that, and then you can break it right down to actionable daily steps that they can follow. So we do that with a lot of CEOs.
This sounds like something that someone would do early in stages of their business career, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll be sitting down with them from early just to figure out what do you want your life to look like as well as a business life to look like.
So essentially there's two parts to it. So there's doing it with a startup who's completely fresh-faced, or there's doing it with someone who may have been in business 15 years, they've just never really had clarity and guidance and direction on where they're actually going and how they're going to get there.
Yeah.
It's like entrepreneurs especially, they're so obsessed with being optimal. So like optimal health, optimal fitness, how do I spend my time? That's why all these biohacking products fly off the shelves, and why if someone does a video on my daily routine as an 8-figure entrepreneur, it gets loads of views because everyone wants to be optimal.
Yeah.
So I'm quite obsessed with going, well, if optimal means good results, how can we operate in business as optimally as possible? And when you break that down, no matter what it is, you can always break that down to data points and metrics and stuff that you can change and tweak and track and progress. So we like to break down every aspect of the business into data points and go, right, well, if you change the call booking to, say, a different button, then it increases the show rate by 20%. Like that's an example of like a data point. But you can do that for the whole business: sales, marketing, culture, team development, leadership, finances. So we really obsess over them data points and try and instill that into the business's wider organisation so they can get better results.
It's more than accounting, right?
A lot more than accounting.
Yeah, a lot more than accounting. So why is it that, I mean, I don't want to say you're just an accountant, but it's your business originally started as an accountancy firm, right?
Yes.
But you've clearly got these skills and the people in place to make sure, I mean, you're basically a boot camp for businesses, basically, understanding where they're trying to go and what they're trying to achieve, especially for the CEO as well.
Yeah.
So did you have this in mind when you started your own firm, or was it just purely in the beginning, accounting at first? And then I think naturally with clients, you start speaking, understanding goals and, you looking at it from an outside perspective, understanding where they should go.
Yeah.
What was it like in the beginning?
So accountancy was always the bread and butter. That was always what we was good at and known for. But then as the businesses and the directors got more affluent, it was quite apparent that not just saving them tax is what's going to benefit them and drive the business forward. It's also making them or allowing them to make more money, which to make more money in a business, you need to have data. And we could break down that data. And because we were financially minded and we understood, we could then give them action points that we know worked with this other business over here. And we know that from this case study over here, that when we increased gross margin by a change in supplier, that this happened and the trickle-down effect was an extra 12% in net profit. Like we're day in, day out looking at these reports and analysing this data. So quite quickly, no matter what the business model is or the director is, we can almost see the path for them to make more money.
Yeah.
So rather than just saving them more money from taxes, which you are limited to a point because we've got the UK tax system and we all know how tough that is.
Which we'll get into in episode 2.
We will do.
Yep.
But we understood that we could also make directors money by giving them data and allowing them to make data-driven decisions and running the business as optimally as possible.
Josh, you've been running this business for 2-3 years now.
Yeah.
How many employees do you have now?
19.
19.
Yes.
How does it make you feel having 19 people under your belt in this business that's been running for 2-3 years? And there's a lot of businesses out there, not to say it's competition, but there's a lot of businesses out there who might not even see that in the whole lifetime of their business. So the fact that you've come this far at such a young age as well, and you've got so much more to go, how does that make you feel?
It's quite surreal, in all honesty. It makes me feel good. However, I don't often enough reflect on what we've done what we've achieved and the setup that we've got. And we've got a lot of high-performing employees that are very skilled individuals, and essentially that makes up my company. But you don't see it like that day to day. You just see it as, well, all these people that share beliefs, vision, mission statement are working day in, day out to achieve this result that we want for clients, that we do very well. Like, day to day, that just happens. To actually holistically look on that and reflect doesn't happen very often, but when it does, surreal, special.
It's a very common trait with every single person I sit down with, every single entrepreneur I sit down with. We struggle to pull ourselves out of our shoes and, you know, look at what we've done and be grateful, because naturally as entrepreneurs, once again, you're trying to be optimal. You're trying to go as far as you can, almost as fast as you can, but definitely as far as you can. And we don't take, you know, for what we've done, for, you know, for being grateful and stuff, because we're always trying to go and look ahead rather than look behind. So I think it's a natural trait, to be fair. But I want to really get into how you actually grew this business and everything, because as I said, I discovered you on social media. So I'm assuming social media is going to be one of the strategies you've done there. And being young CEO, clearly have a lot more of understanding for social media than maybe these older firms do.
Of course.
Right? So what was your whole strategy for growing your business, and how have you got it to where you are now?
So when I looked at my target audience that I wanted to go for, it was, in my mind, like a younger demographic than the normal accountancy firms target. So like your up and coming e-commerce brands, your younger entrepreneurs that are fast paced, ambitious, like that's who I was going to target, because I am that person. So they can relate. If you've got relatability, then that relationship works better. So when I looked at how other accountancy firms were marketing themselves and the landscape of accountancy in general, it's either referral, word of mouth only. Some of these businesses, that's how they operate, or LinkedIn, which is like a professional platform. So I was like, right, I'm younger, I'm a bit against the grain anyway. I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to go Instagram. So I decided to go Instagram. Not many accountants on there, and if there were, not much traction. And I was like, right, I'm going to start doing reels, covering topics, questions that client had asked me day to day. I'll then cover it, I'll record, and I'll post. See how it does. Like that was just the premise of it. And at the start, nothing, like crickets. And then I'd be a little bit inconsistent for a few months because it weren't working, and then I'd go at it again, and just like incremental improvements, like 1% better each time. My first video, don't think it's on Instagram anymore.
But I bet it's one of the ones where you look at it and you think, fucking hell, I made that.
It was like 20 cuts all cut together. It took me like 3 hours to do one video. It was horrendous. Like just me looking at my camera. Was it you making the videos at first as well? Me making the videos at first, yeah. So I used to literally do it in like kitchens. I'm
gonna find some of these
like
old videos.
Looking back to the setup, it was comical. But that's your start. Like you don't start with this sort of setup doing a podcast. You don't start with, you know, a business with 19 employees. You've got to grow from the ground up and get incrementally better, which is what I was doing. And I'd say I was consistent for 2 months, then I'd stop, 2 months, then I'd stop, because I'd already had leads coming through and I didn't have the staff to have the capacity to keep growing. So I decided to turn up the dial and go, right, I'm going to now build a proper team. I'm going to have like an organizational chart, and this person's going to report to this person, these responsibilities.
Run it like a
proper business. Yeah, proper business. So I took on my first staff member June 22. He's still with me today, and he's still my number 2. He's been a rock for the business, like really good first hire.
What did you hire him as? Just an accountant or?
Just an accountant at that point in time.
Okay.
He's now FD. And we've got a full leadership team in place. So we've got a COO coming in, we've got an FD, we've got a practice manager, and then obviously I'm CEO. So essentially that's the leadership team. And then the setup now is below them you have chartered accountants who then have a team beneath them who manage a portfolio of clients. So we've now essentially got a full...
What's the role named as under chartered accountants?
Sorry, what do you mean?
So under chartered accountants, they've got teams, right? What are those roles called? Is there a tier below chartered accountant, basically?
So essentially, you'd have a chartered accountant.
Yeah.
You'd have then like a senior accountant. They may also be chartered, or they may be doing the qualifications to become chartered.
Okay.
But once you've done AAT, you're still a qualified accountant.
Yeah.
So essentially, you'd have chartered accountants with a team underneath them that then manage, we call it a pod, essentially like a pod. So a group of people that collectively manage a portfolio of clients that then essentially report into the leadership team above to make sure compliance is there, quality of service, etc., etc.
Look, building a team is very, very key, right? So if we had to picture this, right, and if you can remember, up until the point where you had your first hire, how many clients were you managing?
I would say at that point in time, bearing in mind there were smaller clients at that point in time, so it would be impossible now, but well over 100.
All by yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot.
Some of them just once a year tax returns. Some of them larger businesses, a lot more involvement. But yeah, I was a busy boy.
Yeah, would you say that demanded a lot of your time as well?
A lot of time. Bearing in mind that quite a lot of accountancy firms might sit around the 300k revenue mark, and they might be 4 or 5 staff.
Yeah.
I was at 100k plus, just me.
Yeah.
So I was a busy boy.
Yeah. And then when you hired your when you hired your first accountant, what did you go from there? Because you can either look at it in 2 ways. You could have thought to yourself, right, cool, I'm going to get some of my free time back, spend it with my partner, go on holidays, whatever, and divide the portfolio 50-50. So I get more time, they get, 50 clients as well.
Yeah.
Or you can double down on the portfolio. What did you do?
We doubled down.
Okay.
We doubled down and we started growing quicker
Yeah.
and quicker and quicker and quicker. Then we got another member of staff who was an apprentice. Then we got admin member of staff. This is probably start of 23 at this point. There was 4 of us. And then from the start of 23 to the end of 23, we went from 4 staff members to 16 staff members, I believe. So well over a staff member a month. Like some months we took on 4 staff members. And this was all driven by social media, which we jumped off a little bit before. But when I started getting consistent on social media, the interest sparked quite quickly. I remember a time when I was away with my partner in Florence and I posted a video. I was on about 4,000 followers at the time. Posted a video that got 1.5 million views on Instagram.
Damn, what was it about?
It was about higher rate taxes.
Okay.
And how to essentially set up efficiently to avoid higher rate taxes.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember looking at this video and the content team, because I did at that point in time had a videographer and an editor. The content team was like, that video is doing really well, Josh. And I was like, okay, look at it. It was 40,000 views, 80,000 views,
Just refresh the page,
200,000 views.
Yep.
Messages were going ping, 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 ping. We was getting 100 inquiries plus a day at that point in time.
Yeah, to add to your portfolio, basically.
Yeah, so to go from like a business with, at that point in time, maybe 10 staff, steady growth, a couple of clients a week, the max, a busy week, to go from that to like 100 plus inquiries a day was like, oh, okay, right? Like we've got a good team now, the service is good, but now we've got unlimited interest, unlimited demand. What do we do with this? And then it was like, right, okay, we need to scale up again. More staff. And essentially it was tough because we had to say no to a lot of interest because we physically couldn't deal with the demand. And we're still at that point in time today. Like demand is way surplus to what we can take on.
Yeah. So if we had to break it down in business structure, right? So we've got CEO, which is yourself. We've got your second hire, which is now FD, you said?
COO.
COO. And then you've got FD.
Yes.
And then you've got MD.
And then we've got practice manager.
Practice manager. Then you've got all your chartered accountants. And then you've got the accountants underneath them.
Correct.
Do you have a team specifically for dealing with client acquisition?
Yes.
Okay, so you've got that as well there.
Yeah.
So and also have you got a social media team as well, like in-house?
Yeah, they have a couple of clients on the side, so they're not employed.
Yeah.
But in-house, yeah. So I've got 2.
Yeah.
So like if we include freelancers and social media team, the teams, and we include partners as well, then the team's 30 plus. But if we include just employees, it's 19. So I was.
So essentially, you've created a very good system in a way when I look at it, because you post something on social media, that goes to the client acquisition team. They deal with that. Then obviously if they're on board, then you go through that. Then they're actually going around to that. Obviously those clients, I'm assuming, I'm assuming there's more of a price tag now to come to you for, tax advice and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But you've got the whole process in place for when you post to how someone can actually be a client and keep them going.
Yeah, so we essentially look at the client, what industry they're in, what revenue range, what are their requirements. Okay, they'd be a great character fit for this team. And then they would essentially get partnered with that team. And then the initial calls would happen. If they're on board, they're in that pod.
Okay.
And for us now, as we grow, it's right, we're not just getting new staff members, we're getting a new pod.
Okay.
So rather than growing one staff member at a time, we now need to add a pod. So we need to add a chartered accountant, client accountant, and a support staff.
Okay. So your pods essentially are basically different, I'm assuming different business categories or different industries.
We specialise in different industries.
So for example, you've got pod 1, let's just say they make Red Bull, or Red Bull's your client. And then you've got pod 2, which is they make lamps or something like that. So, if another lamp manufacturer came to you, okay, that's in pod 2. Or if you got an energy drink, that's in pod 1. And then suddenly now we've got someone who makes tables. Right, we haven't got that. That's now pod 3. So now we have to hire an accountant. What else was it?
Like a senior client accountant to do with the actual work.
Yep.
And then like an apprentice to essentially do bookkeeping.
So then that's all set up. And then, that's a smart strategy.
Yeah.
So you've created teams specifically for different industries.
Yeah, I just feel like you can really strengthen your offer then, because if a team are dealing with 25 different industries, most accountants don't mind that because they're just crunching numbers.
Yeah.
And they're just pressing submit. Whereas
That's
we
what I
don't
would
do
thought,
that. We really break down and understand the business. So if I'm working with an e-commerce client, I understand what ROAS is. I understand all the different platforms they're on. I understand their business model in some scenarios just as well as they do. I understand all the terminology, all the platforms that they use, all the sequences and the email follow-ups, the marketing agencies. Like, I could build an e-commerce brand. Like, I'm not saying I would. I'm not saying I'd do it as well as other people. But I've had that many conversations that I specialise in it.
Yeah.
So I know that I can do that, and I know that my offer is dialed up so far than any other accountancy firm that if an e-com brand comes to me, that conversation's going well. And I want to instill that in the team as well, rather than expecting a chartered accountant to specialise in 25 different industries. Well, expect them to specialise in one, or expect them to specialise in a couple of similar ones. And that for me really strengthens the offer and the value proposition for the client.
How do you keep your staff incentivized?
If you want to attract A player talent, B player talent, you've got to give a B player opportunity or an A player opportunity. Like, you've got to make sure that the setup is better than elsewhere. And for me, we've always overpaid staff to a point where we're no longer competitive, we're just way above. And we've always had high expectations that come with that. And we've always been flexible on working hours. If they want to train they want to go to the gym at 10 a.m, providing the output is there, I'm fine. We've always gone over and above with social events. We've got go-karting next month. We've got a full track between us ourselves.
Oh, is it wicked?
Then we'll go out for food. We did comedy club last quarter. So for me, it's just company culture being strong, everyone collaboratively working together, and also not managing people transactionally, trying to actually empower them to make their own decisions and teach outcomes rather than separate tasks. So like, rather than me saying to you, do this bookkeeping task, it's, right, we're trying to get this client to a position where they're tax efficient. That's your task. And then they need to break that down with the digital assets and the SOPs that we give them to actually get to that end outcome, rather than going, do this, then check they've done it, then do this, then check they've done it. So it's teach the outcome rather than the task. And very quickly you have someone who can rise the ranks and they get remunerated for that.
Do you know what? I'd actually love to come down to Manchester one day and just check out the office, maybe even document it for CEOCAST, just because I think the young company values and everything that you have probably, doing a lot more than these city firms and all that sort of stuff. So I think documenting that company culture, and hopefully you can get a team off the back of it as well. If people start applying for you, then it could work. What about mobile work as well? Because, for example, I've got a cousin, he's studying to be an accountant, right? And I said, look, I'm doing a podcast with an accountant. He's like, yo, can I come? Like, can I get a job? I was like, bro, he's all the way in Manchester. So what about remote working and expanding your, base down into, financial hubs like London?
Yeah. So we've over half of our staff are remote now.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. So for me, talent acquisition with recruitment in accountancy, in finance is tough because it's very competitive. So to restrict yourself to a mileage radius makes it so much more difficult to actually recruit good staff.
Yeah.
So we very quickly realised that we couldn't have just an in-house team. We needed to go remote, or the talent that we could bring into the business, which obviously is a result of the service that we can actually provide, is limited. So we went remote. So we've got staff 3-4 hour drive away.
Okay, sick. So now that we've kind of understood your business and how you built in the structure of it, how many clients have you got now under your belt? Is that something you could say, or maybe a ballpark figure? Bearing in mind you said 100 when you started and it was just yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to put it in perspective of how far it's grown.
So originally I was of the mindset that quantity of clients, the bigger the business, the more clients you have, the more staff you need. Whereas I had quite a shift on that. I'm now about quality of client. So if I'm working with a business, I want to know that they're ambitious, fast-paced, growth. And I don't want to work with thousands of clients. Like some of these big accountancy firms genuinely have tens of thousands of clients, but their service is a direct result of the amount of clients they've got.
Yep.
So we quite quickly streamlined the amount of clients we took on and made sure that we only went for quality. I'd say now, bearing in mind I had 150 on my own, now we probably have 600 total, and that's across a team of 19. And a lot of them are just single director businesses that don't take much time. I'd say clients that we actively focus on and provide a real frequent service with, 200-300 max.
Okay, but these are quality ones then?
Quality clients.
Okay, so if you went for the quantity route with the team that you've got, you could have gone 1,000 plus or something like that.
Of course, easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the local firm that I mentioned before that I worked at initially, they had nearly 2,000 clients and the team was 10.
Okay.
Whereas we're double that, a lot more skilled, and we have a third of their client base less. And a lot of them are we've got a client manager that just does the smaller businesses. So a lot of them are one-off tax returns. So I'd say 2 or 3 or 100 of them, which makes up nearly half the client base, are not really like active clients that are fast-paced growing. So really the client base is small, but that's how we prefer it.
So you, of all people, or your team, are the first people to see a company's numbers. Yep. How many times have you thought to yourself after seeing numbers that would be a good business to invest into? Because you could get so many good investment opportunities just by looking at a company's numbers, thinking, yeah, cool, here's X amount, here's X amount. Just purely investing because you could see the numbers on a daily basis. It's not like, for example, me investing into the stock market. I'm just looking at the share price.
Yeah.
As opposed to you actually looking at ins and outs of everything. What's that been like? I think naturally as entrepreneurs, you always want to increase your wealth. So that's a great way for you to do it.
I've seen that many business plans, profit and loss reports, balance sheets that I can see when a business has legs, and I can see when it's on a path to pretty quick growth, providing that the operator, the director, has got the right mindset. So to see all them opportunities all the time has greatly made me appreciate what companies would be good investments, what business models are the right investments, what business vehicles are the ones that can get you to 8 and 9 figures. So that knowledge is well and truly ingrained. And that's parked for when I want to start investing in businesses, which is, I'm sure we'll get into a future goal of mine. As of now, it is all in on the business that I've got. But there's a lot of opportunities that come with having that level of insight into so many different businesses.
Everything you built right now, do you think, I know you wouldn't, but if we had to look at it in a hindsight perspective, if you, took a step back from the business, let the business run itself without you being there, do you think you could do that?
I've just been away for 3 weeks and fine.
Yeah, not a hiccup.
No, not a hiccup. Took me about 2 days to catch up when I got back. So progress from where it was at one point. I don't think it could run, grow and operate without me as much as it would do if I was in the driving seat. And I think I'd need to make some pretty quick changes for it to completely run without me. But we're closer than we've ever been, for sure.
You say 2-3 weeks out of the business, yeah, but was you actually really 2-3 weeks out of the business? Because
I didn't open my laptop.
Not at all?
No.
Phone?
Messages here and there.
Okay, so you done all right.
I've done all right.
Good switch off then.
Yeah. For an entrepreneur, that's a switch off.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. So if we had to look at it in the future then, is this a business you'd want to sell, like going some point in the future? I'm talking about far future.
Yeah. This isn't a business I want to sell. No.
Not at all.
No. I'm a big believer of understanding what business vehicle you're in and then understanding where you want to go. This is a business vehicle that's going to allow me to build a very good network. It's going to be the hub of my social media because that's where the content's derived from.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of other vehicles that I believe would be better to exit. For example, education business in finance, that could be something that I could grow, build a SaaS product off the back of it, and my multiple on enterprise value would be huge compared to a service-based business. So as of now, the accounts firm wouldn't be something I'd sell, but there is other vehicles that I'm already starting to pursue and map out the project, and I would potentially exit on that.
So where do you want to go with the business? What is your goals and future look like?
So the business, it would be to grow at a steady rate. We're going to niche down into really specific type of clientele to make sure it's a business that we're happy with, because I want to work with people that are of a similar mindset to me, and I'm instilling that across the team. So if we're then working with clients that are difficult clients or tough clients, it doesn't really build that company culture the way I want it to. But for me, it's to continue growing the business to a position where it's 30, 40 staff. We're known as the best in the country. We should roll off the tongue. If anyone thinks finances, accountant, how do I grow my business sustainably, we should roll off the tongue and we should come to the top of mind.
And what about personally? Goals for you personally?
Personally, you know what, I feel like life is about experiences, and I just want to have time freedom, location freedom. I don't want to have to check the price tags. I don't want to have to consider whether that holiday destination is one we can afford or not. I want to spend a lot of time with my partner, spend time with family, enjoy what I'm doing, and experience life to its fullest. That for me is perfect, and work's always going to be a huge part of that because I enjoy work.
If you could have an age where you'd want to retire, what age would it be?
I don't think retirement would interest me in the slightest. I think I would grow old, bored, and my brain would start to deteriorate.
Yeah.
Whether I'm different in 40, 50 years, we will see. But I just enjoy entrepreneurship and the day-to-day that much that whether I would ever retire, I don't know. I've also had a lot of business owners that I do exit planning with, and they've helped them sell the business tax efficiently. And I've seen a lot of them at 60 years old retire, and then they buy a new business, or they're on an exec board, or they're doing advisory work, or they start consulting, or they start mentoring. Quickly you get bored. There's only so many holidays you can do.
I've done a few podcasts now with people who've exited business. For example, Simon Squibb, have you heard of him?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. He sold his business for multiple millions and he got bored. He literally said he got bored. You're just sitting there. Yes, you got money in the bank, but you're at home or wherever you are doing nothing. And, you could sell a business and you could get multiple millions. You could go and travel the world. You can go and live your lifestyle and all that sort of stuff. But anything you do too much of, you're going to get bored.
Yeah.
It's always about constantly changing and everything like that.
And I feel like at our age, when we're still growing, to be thinking about what age you're going to retire, I don't think that's the right mindset. I feel like you can't build a reputation on what you're going to do. We've still got stuff to do to build our reputation and grow the empires, as people coin it. Like, that's what we want to do. So to be thinking about when the end date is for that, when we haven't even built to our potential, not something that I'm interested in.
I'm going to ask you this question, right? Your granddad is up there looking down on you. What do you think he would say, and how do you think he feels about the positions you put yourself in?
I think he'd be very proud, in all honesty. I can say that with chest. I think he would be very proud. I think he would be in the day-to-day with me if he was still there, and he'd be enjoying every second of it.
Would you have hired him?
He'd have cost me. He'd have cost me. But yeah, I'd have hired him. He was good. He was a high performer, as we say. Yeah,
fairs. Well, Josh, if people can find your socials, where can they do so?
Instagram, joshthomas.accountant. That's the handle. That's the main platform we operate on. We are on TikTok. We are on LinkedIn as well.
Make sure you subscribe, like the video, and I'll catch you lot on the next episode. Peace.